I've had a wonderful time here in the village. This is an outstanding community. We've had only 4 village managers in 60 years. A village manager is like a school superintendent, appointed, not elected. My job is to propose a budget, work with the board on policy matters that need their attention and action, appoint the department heads and all other employees. So in many ways it's like trying to lead the orchestra without playing any instruments.
So Bill, who's going to be replacing you in the interim, or how's this going to work going forward?
That's a question for the mayor, and it's a good question.
Well, first, Sally, thank you for coming. Thank all of you for coming today. This is a real bittersweet day for the village of Arlington Heights and for me personally. Having personally participated in the hiring of Bill Dixon some 21 plus years ago, we're going to very much miss him and all that he's done for the village of Arlington Heights and for that enhancement of the quality of life in Arlington Heights, which I believe is second to none. I believe Bill is very much responsible for much of that. Going forward, we will initiate a search. We will retain a search firm. So I'm already working with Mary Rath, our Human Services Director, to identify first a search firm that can help us with that process, and then working with her and with them to identify candidates that the village board can interview. So I think it'll be much like the process that resulted in this fine man being selected as the village manager of Arlington Heights. We did hire a search firm at that time. I think the village board interviewed less than 10 candidates that were finalists, and it was very clear to us who the right person was, and that's how we ended up selecting Bill as the village manager. We're certainly hopeful that this process can identify the same type of person as we go forward. And we can't give you any timelines on that, but I can tell you that we've already started the process this morning in terms of identifying that search firm and getting the ball rolling on that. So we anticipate a seamless transition as we go forward through this process.
So
If I might add a footnote to what the mayor said, when I was interviewed back in the fall of '92, one of the trustees asked me if you were offered this job, how long would you stay? And I said 7 to 10 years probably, and I'm midway through my 22nd year.
What kept you here?
It's a very wonderful community, and I think the people in this town, they support good government, they let us do our jobs. The village boards have been very supportive and understood their role as policymakers. We have a wonderful group of employees, and that really, I think the thing that I get the most satisfaction out of is seeing our services delivered well, responsibly, efficiently, effectively on a daily basis. And the real heroes of the village are the volunteers that make so many of our activities possible, and also our employees who sometimes are unsung heroes because they're out there in the middle of the night plowing streets or helping someone who needs emergency medical care, or apprehending criminals. Our crime rate is very low, but that's not by accident.
So do you expect that you'll have somebody hired by the time Mr. Dixon leaves?
That would be, I think, unrealistic, especially if we end up hiring someone who's already employed by another village, because it'll take us time to go through the first retention of the search firm, then to get them on board in terms of the types of candidates we're looking for, then to identify the candidates, receive applications, go through the winnowing down process and the interview process. And then we anticipate that whoever it is may need to move here, may need to give their employer notice, whether it's 30 days, 90 days, we don't know. So we're certainly hopeful. I don't think it'll be by June 27th when Mr. Dixon leaves. I think that's unrealistic, but sometime hopefully within several months thereafter.
So Mayor, who will you appoint in the interim?
Well, that's yet to be determined as well. I think we'll first see how things go in terms of the retention process of the search firm and how many applications we're getting, just to see how things go, and I think we can make a decision at that point. If it looks like it's going to be maybe 1 month, then we may make a decision based on that versus if it looks like it's going to be 3 or 4 months. So it really depends. I haven't made a decision on that. I certainly will be consulting with the board in terms of what's in the best interest of the village.
Time to decompress. I've been in city management 45 years. I've been a city manager or village manager for 40 years. So I'm going to take 4 communities, and I'm going to take a little time. I'm going to enjoy July and August, certainly. I would like to get involved in something that's less demanding. I want to have some personal freedom that this profession at times doesn't afford one. It's you're entitled to certain amounts of vacation, but you can talk to any of the managers around here, including myself, and they'll tell you it's really hard to be gone for more than about 5 working days because to do this job, you need to be there. Doesn't mean you're indispensable, and in fact, one of the tests, I think, is how things go while you're away. But to stay engaged and to provide the kind of leadership and service that the job entails, it's hard to be gone for prolonged periods of time. My wife and I intend to continue living here and be involved and help the community in any way that we can that is of interest and gives us a little more personal freedom than we have had. She retired a year ago, so
Thanks for coming.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Congratulations.
What couple achievements would you say you're most proud of from the past couple decades for the village?
That's a very good question, Melissa. Nothing that has happened is just because of me. It's the community, it's the board, it's the staff, all working together to get things done. On a day, really, I think the most outstanding thing is the daily delivery of services. The fact that, by and large, we do a good job, and we do it efficiently and effectively, and we try to make the most of the resources that are at our disposal. We're mindful of the financial challenges that everyone faces, our residents, our businesses. So that probably gives me the greatest satisfaction to get a note from somebody that said, my husband was in dire straits health-wise. He was in crisis, and your paramedics came and got him to the hospital and saved his life. That's just a wonderful testimony to the kinds of things we do. People like this past winter who complimented the village and the board for the continual efforts on snow removal. And then it gives me a lot of satisfaction to see our employees advance and develop and move on either within our organization or elsewhere to career progression.
What was the hardest part of the job?
I think the hardest part of the job was the layoffs we had to go through during the recession. People who were, in many cases, doing a fine job, had done nothing wrong, but we couldn't afford to keep their position. We had to consolidate, we had to merge, and that's not unique to the village. I mean, business had to do that, other governments had to do that, but I was here through all that, and that was hard.
Can you talk a little bit more about your decision to hang on another year, given that there was going to be this huge transition with Mayor Mulder stepping down?
I thought that was quite important. I was going to retire a year ago, but when I learned we were going to have a new mayor, and at that point I didn't know who, and that we were going to have 2 new trustees, and at that point I didn't know who, I thought that would have been, after my length of service here, a poor time to leave, even though it had been the time that I had privately been pointing towards. And I'm glad I stayed. I think the transition it has gone well. I think the bulk of the credit for that goes to Mayor Hayes and his colleagues on the board. And I'm glad I was able to be a part of helping that transition occur.
And I very much appreciate Bill's willingness to stay for a year. I did try to convince him to stay another year. But I certainly appreciate his decision, and it's certainly well earned to retire at this time. But his help in the past year has just been critical to the seamless transition that I think we've had here in the village of Arlington Heights. So it's a credit to Bill, to the board, to the staff, and to our residents for really accepting a change in leadership and just moving forward. And it's just a reflection of the great community that we have.
So you knew about it last year when Bill was already thinking about this?
Well, as I was running in the campaign, I was thinking, he's getting pretty close to retirement. I said, I really did expect Bill to retire sometime during my term, my 4-year term. I was certainly hoping it would be a little more than a year, but I'm very grateful for the year that we were able to work together.
And I mean, you've worked with Bill for the whole time he's been here.
Right.
I mean, anything you wanted to say about what he contributed to the village, or how he's been to work with?
Well, he's been just excellent to work with, and I have a difficult time with this decision because not only is Bill my colleague and coworker, but he's become a very close friend. And so I get a little emotional just talking about it because I very much miss his interaction. We talk about other things besides just business. And so I'm very much going to miss him, but he's just been a real steady rock in terms of the leadership of this village hall and this village on a day-to-day basis. And I just am so grateful for having had him to rely on over these past 21 plus years that we've worked together. It's just very comforting knowing that Bill's at the helm and knowing that he's going to find a solution to whatever problem there is, one way or another. And he's done that consistently through those 21 plus years.
So Bill, are you actually retiring, or will you be taking on other work or considering other employment after this?
I don't have anything to tell you at this time, nor do I have anything in the works. I would like to take off July and August. I haven't had a summer off since I was about 14. So that's something I'm looking forward to. I would be open to something that's a little less intense, but that remains to be seen.
So you said that...
I will say this, Sally, I would like to continue to make contributions to this community in one form or another, be it as a volunteer. I want to be useful to Arlington Heights. This is a great town.
So will you consider running for office?
No.
Had enough?
I know what my strengths are and I know what my weaknesses might be.
Maybe you said that you started this morning looking at search firms, so have you guys selected one, or how?
No, I've asked Mary Rath to start that process.
Okay.
Really, and the first thing I suggested was that we look back at the process that ended up so successfully with that end-time bill. And so I did participate in the final interviews, but there was a lot of things that went on behind the scenes with that process that I'm not familiar with. So I asked Mary to first research that to find out exactly how that all happened and see if that's the model we want to use going forward for this.
What kind of qualities are you looking for in the next village manager?
Well, I told the department heads earlier today that unfortunately there's only one individual like Bill, so we can't get a person exactly like Bill, but certainly I think, and I think the board agrees, that we want to identify someone who has the same qualities as Bill, and that's in terms of leadership style, in terms of expertise, administrative expertise, and those kinds of things. Consensus building, certainly all those qualities are important. Dedication to duty. So certainly all those qualities that Bill Dixon has exhibited over those 21 plus years, I think we're looking for. Now certainly we're all made differently, and we're going to get different personalities in here, and we're not looking certainly to mold someone into Bill Dixon, but we want that person to be their own person and do things they want to do it. And that's what I have to be careful of in terms of my role with this person, is to make sure that I don't cross the line in terms of day-to-day operation of the village. So I think I've been real clear about that over my time with the village, that there's a real clear distinction between the policymakers and the day-to-day administrators and implementers. And I think, to Bill's credit, we've always followed those lines pretty closely And so I'll make sure that we do that with the new individual as well.
Would there be any chance for internal promotion from a department head or someone else in the village?
I think that's certainly possible. I think they're certainly welcome.
Has anybody already expressed interest?
Not to me at this point.
Bill?
But they would have to go through the same process with the search.
Yeah, and I think, this is a big enough job. We've got a reputation.
Yeah.
It's a 75,000 person community, so it's with a very large budget, and it's a lot of work, as Bill will attest to. So we need someone who's experienced. Doesn't necessarily have to be someone who comes from the same size community or a larger community, but I think someone who's got the administrative experience in
It'll
a
be a
similar
national search.
type village. And I anticipate it'll be a national search.
Are you, I saw on your village biography that you're still a member, or you're a member on Swank and these other communities. Are you gonna stay
No.
on those, or will that, you'll
No,
swap those when you
my
retire?
roles with those organizations will end
Okay,
in conjunction with my
okay.
end search.
So Bill, I mean, being a city administrator, I mean, you guys get traded like baseball cards at this point, industry-wide. Can you talk a little bit about, your longevity here? What you think, how you think you got to this point and how you got to be successful?
Well, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier. Did I mention earlier about the question that I was asked when I was interviewed?
Mm-hmm. So
Okay.
you'd say 7 to 10
Yeah,
years?
yeah. I just think it's been a good match, a good fit. My style and the board's desires have been compatible. I think to be a good village manager, you have to really believe in representative democracy. You have to be committed to understanding that those 9 people acting as a group represent the people and the businesses in this community. And that it's your job to implement their decisions. After you've made your recommendations, provided alternatives, tried to identify consequences, it's your job to implement their decisions. And a manager is reliant on staff to follow through with that, but the manager is ultimately responsible. I think it's just been a good fit,
Do you remember a point in your life when you wanted to be a village manager, or you knew this is what you wanted to do?
No, I didn't. There was not the time when the light went on. I was kind of a product of the 60s, and there was that public service mission that I think President Kennedy encouraged. Ask not what you can, or
Yeah, it's too early.
That was a time of considerable civil unrest, both in some of the larger cities and also on campuses. And as it so happened, I was in Champaign at the University of Illinois graduate school when a lot of that happened. And I knew I wanted to work in government, but I thought really that maybe local government would be the area where a person could have the greatest impact. That wasn't something that that evolved with me. The light didn't just go on one day, it evolved.
Mhm. So at some point, like when you have evolved into a village manager, do you say, and I don't mean to make you brag, but do you say, okay, this is something I'm good at, I'm glad I'm in this job, and maybe what was that quality or qualities that you said, this is kind of good, I'm doing this right?
What I like about it is you can see the results of your efforts.
Yeah.
That's what I like. And those aren't necessarily my personal efforts, but the efforts of the board, the efforts of the employees, the impact on the community. I like seeing us do things as a village that make Arlington Heights better and that help our people and our businesses.
Yeah. I can say I've never heard anything bad. It's always been good.
About Arlington Heights?
And, well, no, you specifically too. So, yeah. And those are people out in departments out there, so. Yeah.
What will you miss the most?
Daily interaction with the board members and the staff members. We're going to still live in town, so I'll see people and acquaintances and associates. But the daily coming and going and interaction with employees and board members, I'll miss that.
Do you think you'll stay in touch? I know when Mayor Mulder was retiring, she kind of wanted to keep in touch with Mayor Hayes, and I don't know if she has in the past year, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
To kind of pass on some words of wisdom and that kind of thing. I mean, do you think you'll do that too? or-
I don't think I'll be coming around Village Hall unless I'm invited for something, but I'm not gonna try and avoid,
Yeah.
village officials and village employees. I mean, those are my colleagues and friends and associates, and
Mhm.
we're not gonna be moving anywhere, although we might look for a place in the winter that's a little warmer, seems the way it's been. But that would be just be temporary.
Yeah.
You guys talk on the board a lot about having institutional knowledge and how valuable that is as you make decisions. Losing Bill would obviously impact that a lot, but how do you think you'll replace that or be able to get on that? You're obviously a long time member of the board too, so you have.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. Certainly, it's helpful that myself and other members of the board have a lot of historical institutional knowledge. The other thing is that we do have a lot of department heads that have been here a long time as well, even longer than me. And so that'll help a lot in terms of the transition with respect to educating a new village manager. And I think we'll identify someone who's going to take some time, I think, to educate him or herself in terms of how things operate here, and then decide based on what they think is best for the day-to-day operation of the village going forward. So we're definitely going to lose a lot, I think, as a result of the loss of Bill's institutional knowledge, but I think we can make up for it.
When did you tell the board and Mayor that you were retiring?
Recently. I wanted to get the new fire chief appointed, and I wanted to get the budget approved. And once those were done, I thought we were ready to announce something.
So
After
with
Monday?
With a big transition like this, a lot of times communities will take it as an opportunity to do some restructuring or some rethinking, re-strategizing, that type of thing. Do you guys anticipate that with this big of a transition, and if so, anything to speak of at this point?
I don't have any plans for that right now. I think we've relied on him to streamline the structure in certain ways with the economic downturn. I think he's done a good job in doing that. I don't see anything that's broken at this point that needs fixing. As I just said, it's certainly possible that the new village manager will, after he or she has been here a number of months, sees things that could be done differently or better. And it's no reflection on Bill, it's just individual management or leadership style. So I don't want to squelch those kinds of things from a new person if they think it'll result in more efficient and effective administration.